are attached to your agendas. And my apologies to you if you tried to look at these in advance. The copies that I got up of the documents when they went through Google Docs, they lost their markups, and I especially wanted you to see the markups because it was sort of a trail of the conversations that I had mostly with Chris Burford and Deanna on making changes to the governing documents as they were presented to the board. The governing documents that we had as a start was prepared by Ryan, what's Ryan's last name? Hageman, who was counsel for OUS and is now general counsel for Western Oregon University. They reflected OUS policy in some documents, and some of this stuff was of Ryan's creation. And what Deanna and I and Chris made an effort to do was to take these documents that were, as I said, referenced to some other documents and penned by the OUS council to make them fit and be consistent with our university and our constitution and shared governance system. And we spent the better part of 4 or 5 meetings going through this. What I've attached for you, it seemed like the best way to do this was the original edits that Deanna and I made in an effort to cull those documents to documents that fit our university and our shared governance system. So you have a copy of that. And then I also attached the document that we ended up with. And that's not a perfect way to look at these, but I didn't have a perfect way because we had many transitions in there. And my concern would be that we would, and we may anyway, get lost in the concerns about the different wording in different places. And I'd like to find out what your preference is in discussing this. I can go item by item that we had discussions about. Chris has agreed to join us and talk about our process and what we went through, if that's helpful. Or I can entertain questions on the documents as you see them going forward also. So what's your preference? Sarah?
I would prefer that you call out anything specific that you think that we might be concerned with. I found it somewhat difficult to look at all the different versions of the documents and figure out where the changes were without seeing that markup.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. Steve, I see you nodding your head for it. Okay. Would it be helpful if we displayed the documents up here? Okay. Heidi, would you do that for us, please? All right. And bear with me, I need to pull it up on my machine. If the first document is the bylaws for the Board of Trustees. And this was provisionally approved by the Board of Trustees in February, provisionally until the June meeting. And the first comment that I have is in Article 4. And it had to do with the quorum of the board, and talking about a majority of the office, the trustees in office, including the president. We had some discussion about does the president count as a trustee in making the quorum? And do you remember how we decided that, Chris?
Yes. You were concerned that this was a little confusing, and I think I explained how, in terms of the context of other things said elsewhere in the document, it really was pretty clear as was. That's my recollection now.
That's my recollection also.
Yeah. It says elsewhere in here that the president is a member of the board who counts for the purposes of quorum, but does not have a vote. Let's see, on this page we're looking at, which section are we talking? Is the quorum, is it C there?
Yeah.
Or quorum of the board?
Quorum of the board.
Yeah, so scroll up there, Heidi. There you go.
What are we looking at here?
This is the
I understand what the document is. I mean, are you wanting us to look at A through C here?
what I want you to look at is quorum of the board, number 2 there.
So I think the question was about the majority of the trustees in office, including the president. And so I think that was the language you focused on. And so, for instance, we currently have 14 trustees in office. The president is counted as a trustee and is explicitly counts for purposes of quorum.
And what we question is the clause in the second and third line where it says a majority of the trustees in office, including the president at the time of the meeting, making up a quorum. And we wondered whether that was vague or ambiguous. And you heard what Chris said about it being referred to in other places, and we left it as is. So I'm going to move on if there's not further questions on that. And Heidi, if you can, in that same document, if you can go down to 1.6, academic affairs, you'll have to go out of keep going down. This is in board statement number 2, page 2. So you're in the bylaws right now. Keep going.
1.6.
1.6, please.
Let's stick with 2.
Academic affairs. The board has the authority to establish and eliminate, control, or substantially reorganize academic programs and units of operation. And our comments to Chris about that was, in light of the collective bargaining agreement, because the ability to terminate a contract of a bargaining unit member is governed by Article 2, Section G of the CBA. And we had a discussion about that. Chris, can you reproduce the discussions we had on that?
I'm trying to recall them. So this first sentence is simply true as a matter of law. It was true of the state board. But like all of these general statements, like when you look in the statutes at the statements about what the president has, they look like this president can rule with an iron fist. The reality is that all sorts of agreements are entered into that then, by which the presidents and the boards limit their power pursuant to those agreements, and collective bargaining agreements are one of those. They're legally enforceable, and they've got, this doesn't change any of that.
Mm-hmm. And in conversation with Chris, Deanna and I agreed that this statement did not in any way limit the collective bargaining agreement. It just put it into the context of the Board of Trustees rules.
Right. The board sort of had, the board, or it's the people that preceded it, had to have this power in order to enter into those agreements. And so it's just, nothing has changed.
And Heidi, could you go down to 2.4 of board statement number 2? There it is. Okay, and I'm going to read you the way this was before. It said, the president of the university shall establish and define the charge of any and all university committees, councils, and advisory groups, except as provided by board action. The establishment and charge of any and all university committees, councils, advisory groups shall be consistent with law and board action. The recommendations and reports of all committees, councils, and advisory groups shall be made to the president. Upon request by the chair of the board or a majority of the trustees, the president shall provide the board with recommendations or reports of a university committee or advisory group. And Deanna and I both felt that that was heavy-handed and didn't represent what we wanted in the bylaws about shared governance. And what you see here
there.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it. I want to make sure that
So essentially what we did was, I agreed that the first sentence, which spoke in very sort of absolute terms about the power of the president, didn't need to be there, and so it was deleted. The second sentence and third sentence, so what you see there at the beginning of 2.4 is what was the second sentence. And that sentence and the following sentence that says upon request by the chair are in there unchanged. And what then the last 4.5 lines of text are language that was added that John and Deanna had recommended. They drew that language from an existing Oregon University system policy that describes, it's mostly a policy about the role of the president vis-a-vis the state board and how he's supervised by chancellor and their relationship, but it has in there descriptions of the authority of the president. And that language pretty much, I think what you're saying right there is unaltered from what was in the OUS policy. So we took out a sentence that seemed unduly sort of inflammatory and replaced it with some language straight out of existing OUS policy that's tacked on at the end. That's kind of my recollection of what we did.
and that's my recollection too. What we did is we tried to make this statement acknowledge in the bylaws our shared governance system and the president's relationship with that, without, and we cannot in this document say something that is opposed to Oregon law and regulation. So what we tried to do here is acknowledge our shared governance system within the bylaws by using the language they had about the importance of shared governance. You will see the importance of shared governance again and again in the second set of documents that we're going through. Nicole, okay.
Can you, sorry.
I said, you had a quizzical look on your
No,
face.
no, no.
Okay, you're fine. Sarah?
Could you, I'm just having a hard time spotting it, highlight for me where that role of shared governance where you might interpret from this?
Yeah, the president of the university is I'm gonna start reading about halfway down it.
Uh-huh.
And it says, the president of the university is delegated full authority and responsibility to manage and administer the affairs of the institution, except otherwise provided by board rule. The president is delegated full authority to determine the organizational structure, except otherwise provided by board rule and policy. What that implies is the president has the authority, but it's not the authority to just tell shared governance what to do. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So John, I have one comment
Yes, please.
about 2.4, and that's on that last line where it says rule, policy, and directive. I think we had said we would just say board action.
I believe we did too.
And likewise where it says the same thing in the middle of the paragraph. So that's just a note for next time.
Okay. And those are the changes that we made to the bylaws. These were provisionally approved by the Board of Trustees, that approval to expire at the June meeting. So we will be proposing these changes as something that shared governance approves of if you approve of those changes. And this was meant as a discussion of these so that you could see them. And we just finished these yesterday afternoon, and I will be giving these forward also to University Council and ASEOU for their review and taking them to their organizational bodies. All right? Not real exciting stuff, but important stuff. All right, let's move on to document 2. Good, that's the one I was hoping to pull up.
Heidi, is it possible to, yeah, thanks.
And you have the markup in front of you, and we've gone through several markups. What I'm going to do is on my screen, I'm going to have in front of me the final changes that we did. In the first line there, the establishment of separate institutional governing boards for each university is just corrected language. There's nothing more to that. Then these documents had, for university had truths, it had different language, and you'll see a lot of changes like that. Okay, please go down to the next change. And here we have some formatting. We put president in, keep going down. And here we rearranged the order and named the shared governance bodies. And it's interesting, it doesn't feel that way anymore, but University Council, when you all, and some of you are long enough in the tooth to remember this, not me, that the assembly when shared governance was split was meant to be replaced with the University Council, which had representatives of all of the constituencies of the university. And Faculty Senate was what we are now, a legislative body of faculty that deal with primarily academic issues. The responsibilities in shared governance were split between those two, and we put University Council first in all of these statements, just as representing that they were meant to be the council for the entire university, and we were representing a subset of that, as is ASEOU. All right, so Heidi, if you'll go down to the next markup, okay, you can stop there. This was a rather lengthy discussion. The issue about what we thought of about who initiates policy and what Ryan thought of about who would initiate policy was different. And what he had said was that the president has primary authority for the approval of university policies and define the expectations and requirements for the university's functions as outlined in the board statements on policy. The board expects duly elected and appointed representatives of us to participate. The part that we put in is the president of the university council and the faculty together are authorized to formulate a statement of internal governance. It's in the Constitution. The Constitution will be ratified as an official statement of internal governance for the university by the electorate of the university council, referring back to when it was part of the assembly. All statements in internal governance will be consistent with state law, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things we added above was that the university council, faculty senate, and ASEOU can, I want to get the language right, can propose and offer input and advice on university council. And the way Ryan foresaw this in my read was that the president proposed all policies and we commented on it. And we didn't feel that that fit what we wanted to do as shared governance, that we wanted to be part of proposing, offering input and advice on university policy. And Chris agreed with that assessment. It seemed consistent with our Constitution, and that's what we put in. Questions, comments? Okay, University Council. Ryan did not, stop right there, did not have a description for University Council. We went back and forth on this a fair bit. And what you see here is what Deanna put in as a description, and then we edited it a fair bit. I put this in here because I wanted you to see that we had taken a change from what was in Ryan's language, which was essentially about a staff representative body, and put in our university council. What I'll do here is I will read you the final language that we went through in a series of edits. And it says, the board recognizes that the university council as an internal representative of the body of the full university community, that is, i.e. administrative professionals, classified staff, faculty, students, as well as administration. The board affirms the university council's role in the development and approval of university-wide policies consistent with Oregon law and board statement on delegation of authority. This includes, but is not limited to, responsibility in conjunction with the president to accept, consider, and act upon recommendations of standing committees of the university in the areas of diversity, budget and long-range planning, student activities, intercollegiate activities, and financial aid policy. The president is authorized to veto any decision of the University Council. Such vetoes will be communicated to the University Council when they occur. So that section now is consistent with our Constitution. The standing committees of the University Council are the committees that are represented in 1 through 5 there. And the president is authorized to veto any decision that University Council, for that matter, as you will see, faculty senate make. And we added the language that such vetoes will be communicated to University Council when they occur. Note that we have such vetoes can be overridden by 2/3 vote of the University Council, which is not part of any law or legislation in the state, but Deanne and I thought it was worth suggesting. And since it did not fit with any law or action of the University Council, we said it was preferred language, but we would accept this without it, and we have accepted it without it. Questions, comments? Okay, let's move down to Faculty Senate. Okay, here we have a description of the Senate and what it does. You can see there's a number of edits. I'll read the first paragraph as a final edit so you can get a sense of what we're saying now. The board affirms the faculty's central role in the development and stewardship of the university's academic mission, consistent with Oregon law and the board's statement on delegation of authority. This includes, but is not limited to, responsibility in conjunction with the president and the provost for academic standards relating to the admission to study at the university. 2, curriculum materials, methods of instruction, grading, credits, academic standards of the university. And 3, standards of student competence in a discipline. And 4, developing faculty evaluation, tenure, and promotion policies. That is as per is stated in our Constitution. Goes on to say the board expects the faculty to have substantial participation and input into the development of new academic degree programs and any significant changes to the academic degree programs before they reach a board for consideration and approval, and as appropriate transmission to the Higher Education Coordinating Commission for approval. We corrected and added to that language to make it consistent with our Constitution. And then the next paragraph has to do with our internal organization, and we made a number of edits in here, and I will read that paragraph to you. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because you'll see as we move on we'll have many fewer edits, but I'm going to read you this one. The board recognized the Faculty Senate as an internal representative of the faculty in order to set forth its internal processes for participating in shared governance. The Faculty Senate is authorized, consistent with law and statements and actions of the board, to formulate a strict statement of internal governance expressed as Faculty Senate bylaws, and we have those. These bylaws must be consistent with the applicable law and the statements and actions of the board, and is subject to the approval of the president in his or her role as president of the faculty. The president resides over the faculty and is authorized to veto any decision of the Faculty Senate. Such vetoes will be communicated to the Faculty Senate when they occur. Notwithstanding the president's statutory role as the president of the faculty, the Faculty Senate bylaws may provide for a member of the faculty serve to serve as the Faculty Senate's president. Faculty Senate bylaws are subject to the approval of the board after notice to and consultation with the president and the Faculty Senate. That spells out our internal operations, the election of our president, and what we are doing. All right. Questions, concerns? Let's move on. Okay, to hold there. This continues to be changes in the Faculty Senate description. I don't think we need to go over that again. So let's go down to E. And in E, we just cleaned up the language. There was nothing in there that we needed to change. We named the Associated Students as the Associated Students of Eastern Oregon University, as ASEOU, and you can see the language there. I think it's fairly straightforward. Yeah, Chris, was there anything in communication here that I should bring to the attention of the Senate?
No, I think this is all just replacing the generic language that was provided for all the truths with language specific to this institution.
Okay, and then in performance evaluation, see if you can get that all on one page. Let's see.
Oh, I think that was all of it.
Was it?
Yeah, it's
Cool.
just 2 sentences.
And what Deanna and I sought to do here is put shared governance in as a partner in the evaluation of the president.
So originally it was just what appears in black, and John and Deanna has suggested the language that appears there underlined in red. And I said, fine. You know,
So, and I'll read this brief paragraph. It says, in evaluating the job performance of the president, the board will consider the president's commitment to shared governance as described in this board resolution and seek and obtain the input from duly elected members of the Faculty Senate, University Council, and ASEOU. So this recognizes shared governance as having an integral part in the evaluation, formal evaluation of the president.
It's, so just so you know, I mean, this is basically the conversation John and Deanna and I are having about how to make this language tailored to this institution. John's coming talking to you guys. I'm going to send this off to the current president and the future president and, you know, the executive comm and that kind of thing. And they may have comments too, but I'm basically saying I was comfortable with this.
Okay, Heidi, let's move on. We're gonna run out of stuff. That's stop. That's clarification of language there. And down in the board statements and resolutions, that's clarification of language. And stop there, university policies. University policies are going to figure rather large below here. And let's see, just leave it there, please. University policies describe exercise of delegate and president. University policies typically conclude broad strategic expectation of university affairs. And what we did there is we took the president's regarding of university affairs and made it the strategic expectations of university affairs, not just the president's expectations. Go on. Handbooks and manuals, what do we got here?
We deleted the sentence that had the examples in it.
There was examples of handbooks that we didn't have, so we just took out the examples because we thought the paragraph worked fine without it. Continue, please. All right, you can stop there. Ryan had in his mind how a university ought to set policy. which had essentially nothing to do with our shared governance process and how we dealt with policy. And if, what I want you to do, Heidi, is page down a fair bit until we get to the end of that deletion. Go back up a little bit. We deleted all of Ryan's ideas about how policy should be written. And what we did, I need to get to it on my screen so I can say what we did. Under this section, let me get to it. We, for 3.0, which is completely crossed out here, we have put in a placeholder section that's not in this markup. We didn't put it in until we were down through 2 markups. And 3.0 now says procedures for proposing, reviewing, revising, and promulgating policies. It has not been written yet and needs to be written consistent with our shared governance policy and the desires and the direction that our board of trustees will take. But we took all of this out because it didn't apply to what we're doing. 4.1, what does format tell us, Chris?
Oh, well, this document we're looking at, the statement on policies, was basically built around this section 3, where Ryan was proposing the creation of a new body that would have people from all the different categories of employment on campus involved in this body, reviewing and processing policy changes. And in many ways, it was a bright idea, but our goal from the start with these things was not to alter the status quo. We can talk about changes to status quo later. There's enough change going on right now. So this policy still contains a description of the different kinds of policies, but the whole discussion about which types of policies get reviewed at what level of the organization by whom has been taken out. We weren't going to adopt Ryan's innovation now. This wasn't the time to do that. And we didn't really have time for a draft, a description of current practice. But one of the concerns about this innovation Ryan had was it would have seemed to have supplanted the role of the University Council, which under the Constitution here has a unique role in reviewing policy. So that's why that was taken out. And these under 4, there's 2 and 3, 4.2 and 4.3 are actually kind of use terminology that refers back to section 3, and so we just took them out to eliminate confusion.
So my comments on this policy, on policies that we took out was stronger. If adopted, it would have been completely counter to our Constitution and our method of shared governance. And it's been my impression from my discussions with the president and Chris and members of the board is that's not what they want to do. What they want to do is work with us to build a new EOU. And we could not have this sort of language in here. It was counter to what we were trying to do. Okay, so let's move on. I don't think there's very much.
I think that's it.
And I said that had to be proofed in this comment, but let's just keep going and see if we have any comments farther. This was pretty much boilerplate about ethical duties of a trustee, and it seemed, keep going. It seemed straightforward and appropriate. There was a spelling problem there. It was an O instead of an OR. And there was a numbering problem there that we fixed. And about ethics, keep going. Gifts. Conflicts of interest, keep going. Keep going. Compliance. And I believe we're to the end. Those were the changes that we made. We found much of this fine. We found much of it needed change, and we put the changes in. So Chris tells me there's a few little cleanup things that I missed when I was editing this, and we'll have that. I will have a completely clean copy for Senate to consider as endorsing going forward. And Carol, I'll have that copy to you. We just finished this yesterday afternoon, so you can get it. And I don't see Philip, but I'll get it to ASEOU too. Our hope is that we will be able to endorse these governing documents and bylaws as all of the shared governance bodies together. And Chris has been representative of administration and the executive form of the president. I don't know how else to say it, the presidents. And he will take this information to them, explain what's going on. I don't know whether they'll have any concerns about what we do. This seems straightforward and appropriate for the governing documents for our university going forward. My hope is they will be able to present this to the board in a motion to approve it in the same format that shared governance approves it. That was our goal from the start, and I'm hoping we'll be there. So we'll bring this back to you for your vote on our June 2nd meeting. Okay. Thank you, Heidi. And if you think that's long to listen to, you should have spent all the time reading it.
We had a good time talking about punctuation now.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you for all that work.
You're welcome. Okay, essential components for the university. Heidi, can you find that and bring that up also so we can have it in front of us? So there's two items down below there, essential components, and then the comments on from the faculty concerning essential components. While Heidi's pulling that up, I can tell you what the process we did, and I've told you a fair bit about it already. You've seen the messages, the repeated messages that I sent out to faculty, collecting ideas of what the faculty thought were the essential components for EOU going forward. As you can see in this document, the essential components are meant to grow out of the mission statement. The mission statement says EOU guides student inquiry through an integrated, high-quality liberal arts professional programs that lead to responsible and reflective action in a diverse and interconnected world. Right? That's what we do, but how do we do it, and how do we do it for the diverse group of students and majors that we have going forward? The essential components were meant to address that. We went through a number of iterations with the 26 essential components that we received from the faculty. The committee, which was Rhea and myself, Laura Gao, and who was another business person in our committee?
I have to look it up.
Would you please?
Sure.
So the members of our committee looked through this. We all coded it, looked at the different components and thought how they refer to the mission and what categories we might put them in. And could you go down now a little bit? Back up so we can see the first category, just to there. So there's no further editing on this, so you can read that we had three three different categories on how our mission is served by essential components for the university. We had a vibrant on-campus culture that offers. We had strong academic programs, and we had service to the Eastern Oregon region through a number of different things. And the essential components seem to fall into those three categories. As you can see in reading this, that there was a number of very different programs and co-curricular and student service activities that we named there. What we tried to do is not leave anything out and be faithful to the items that we received from the faculty as a whole. And what I want to do with this is I want us to help lead the board conversation on the mission of the university and what EOU is going to be like going forward. And just like our comments on the governing documents, which were much drier, we sort of set the agenda for the changes in the governing documents so that they heard the shared government's comments on those. Here, I want to make a statement from the faculty about what the essential components are for EOU going forward. So that's what our committee has attempted to do for you, and you have these items before you. Comments, discussion? Sarah?
When you say you want to make a statement, in what kind of format or how formal is that?
This.
But I mean, is this just something to carry forward in discussions with the board and with the incoming president, that this is the feeling of the faculty, that these are components that we think that we need? Or is this meant to be some sort of official document that we would vote on that becomes part of our...
What I'll look for is a motion that reinforces your former statement about this. We've taken a pulse of the faculty, and we've considered what we consider the essential components for EOU going forward, and we bring this to the board for their careful consideration. They will be, in at least their first 6 months, filled with concerns about what is EOU going to be like going forward. I want us to set the agenda for them going forward. This is not a proposal of what it must be. This is our perspective on what it would best be.
All right, I'll go.
Go right ahead.
It's not the same week as last week. No. I just don't get it. I mean, I did a little editing on it, but I don't see in this document anything that's unique, anything that is something someone would disagree with. It doesn't have any binding power. I mean, there's no harm in it if we want to send it, but honestly, John, I don't really see where this gets us. I can't imagine any board member kind of going, oh my gosh, wow, they want to help the arts program. I mean, it just seems so self-evident to me as a document, and I know you guys have worked hard on it and tried to align it with our mission, but I mean, the board not being super interested in faculty input notwithstanding, I think that we're not saying anything that's not already present in our website and in our core themes and values. So I think we just have to, if we just want to send this up to them, I think they'll say thanks and they'll look at it. But I don't see this as having really, as Kenton would say, moving the needle in any way. And I just don't want to take a bunch of people's time up with it. And I know that's just super blunt, but I don't even know what week it is in the term. I'm exhausted, and this isn't going to do anything, in my opinion.
And I think it'll do more than.
Okay, I love an optimist. It's just not my nature.
So that's sort of my nature, maybe. But what talking about healthy arts programs and there's a number of other things about offering academic majors in professional and liberal arts fields that we're saying that's essential for the university. There'll always be some sentiment is that we ought to just have programs and majors that pay for themselves, and the rest of them should just be support classes. What we're saying in this document is that doesn't work for this university. And I think it's important for us to say that and have that on the record and start the conversation from that point of view, and not from the point of view of the president's, what did he call it, business plan that looks at what we can do that will make money for the university. And I know that Dr. Kenton meant more than that, but that has a different focus than this. And I think this is an important focus for us to say, pay attention to this. So I think it'll be more than just a waste of time. Michael.
If I might, could you scroll back up to the mission, please?
Sure.
I'm trying to recall whether it's College of Business or the main mission that references the wider world. Interconnected world. There was a comment from Kay, I don't know who Kay was, about provincialism and the importance of having a culture that goes beyond our region.
And Heidi, if you'll go down to the academics a little farther. Oh, I'm sorry, go up then. Introduce students to new ways of thinking about the world and their place in it, which I saw as a nod to Kay's concerns about those. And so that changed that wording, which I was faithful to in the prior wording to what the person that had proposed a statement on how we teach. And this, I think, improves it. And Nicole, thank you for that.
The only thing that I took from that was more of a need to have an international presence.
And I saw that
More
here.
international students.
And that wasn't
an example. I know
And that
that's-
wasn't represented in any of the
Yeah.
26 items that we had received. So I'm hoping it's represented in this statement about the world, but we didn't have anything specific, nor did I have any sentiment that we needed to have international presence and international studies is a very important part of Eastern Oregon University. So we didn't do that. Scott?
I mean, I think you guys are being pretty deliberate about this, and I haven't really contributed to this, but I think we have to be careful when we create a list like this, that it's the be all end all. And then later we go, oh, we forgot that, right? That's the only danger of doing, I mean, I appreciate the brainstorming, but it is going to continually evolve, and our needs are going to change. And I don't even know if we know what our needs are, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's either
And the board doesn't know what our needs are either. And we have maybe a better crystal ball than the board, but the board will certainly have a different crystal ball. And whether we have an incomplete view of the future, we all do, but we'll have to plan EOU for that future, and we have to depend on our incomplete view. What we tried to do is put together a view that reflected much of the faculty sentiment. Whether we captured it or not is a lot up to you to judge whether we did or not. You've seen what the committee came up with, and I haven't highlighted here, but you have privy to the comments that I got back when I sent this back out to the faculty for their comments. I think we get a start on this. I think this is useful going forward. And I think it will help set the discussion at the board level. And I think that's the best we can do right now, in my opinion. Other comments on this? So in 2 weeks, oh, thank you, I can't see that. Colin,
Could you scroll up or down or whatever, go to the top of the document where it starts. To serve its mission must contain the following, okay. I was gonna suggest that maybe to identify that it is potentially be an evolving components, maybe not limited to, adding that. But, so that's one thought. The other thought is, can we take out extracurricular and change it to co-curricular? Because I think we need to be consistent in some, even for the board documents. Extracurricular and co-curricular, we're not extracurricular, we're more co. So we prefer to have co-curricular activities versus extracurricular. So just a suggestion.
Can you make changes on that document, Heidi?
Yes.
Okay, and to serve the mission of Eastern Oregon University, to serve its mission, Eastern Oregon University must contain the following essential components. How would you suggest we change that, Colleen?
But not limited to, somehow, must include but are not limited to.
So, if you don't mind.
No, please go ahead, Chris.
I would say that choice of word is really cute because contain is usually considered to be a closed set and include is an open one. And so it doesn't mean, when you use include, it doesn't mean you're listing everything.
So if we change contain to include, it would get at Colleen said in it? Heidi, can you read that for us? Thank you. Thank you. Other comments on this? So with these changes, I will bring this back to the Senate for a motion to pass this on to the board as our view of what EOU needs to include going forward to be a successful university. And what they will have for their consideration will be President Kenton's business plan, and this will lay next to it and will contrast to the business plan, because this also talks about what we have at the university and what we offer and need to offer that aren't just revenue producing programs. Okay, thank you. Steve, I'm tired of talking. Why don't you talk for a while?
Okay, so is the update that I gave you the link there?
I believe so. Would you
Okay.
like to hold up?
So what's up there now are the revisions we made of the ad hoc committee for revising the course course reaction surveys. We got back not quite a dozen comments after sending this out to faculty and students, or ASU anyhow. Most of them were very supportive of the changes we made. There were a few wording changes that are corrected here. There was some sense that some of the questions included too many things in one statement, and so we separated that out a bit. The biggest issues that were sort of outstanding, some people wanted, so the document I had last meeting had 6 categories from strongly agree to strongly disagree, but there was nothing for neutral, and got several comments that we should include something for neutral as well.
So I'm looking at your Likert scale, and in the middle, it's undecided. That's not exactly neutral.
No, but it is fairly common language for that, and it's also what's on our current form. There's also the option of not answering. There was some debate about how wide the Likert scale should be, debates of 5 versus 7, but the version that I sent was 7. We didn't come to a strong agreement on that. Okay, left. Let's see, what else? I think those were the biggest changes. Oh, there was some debate over the demographic information. Some of the comments we got back felt that was not going to be particularly useful, but our committee felt that it really would be, if it were possible, to look at the results cross-sectionally with the demographics. If one demographic of student responded very differently to a course than another demographic, we felt that that was useful information.
I would think so.
So we kept that in, even though some people felt that that wasn't necessary.
Will that be separated out from, like when I get my evaluations back, I won't have that information?
Well, so this is part of the implementation issue. That's the next step on this. And
Because
that's, yeah, I mean,
that
that,
concerns me in a class of 5 people, and I
Right.
have one male student.
Exactly.
I'm gonna-
And that's-
And that's not.
and that is part of the implementation issue. We said that if we can get the results separated by demographic in a way that still preserves anonymity, that it's worth doing it.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, thank you for the work of your committee and your work getting this together for us. Other comments or questions about the online evaluation questionnaire that has been presented? So, we took this on to get a better questionnaire system for our course evaluation. We're a little out of order because this needs to go back to, I believe, to UPC. Does this come back to you?
You can, but it's somewhat water under the bridge.
So we could approve this as the questions going forward. I'm concerned about not stepping on the UPC feet on this. And you, because you are the authors of our faculty evaluation program, ought to have some say in it. So I don't want to overstep that. What I wanted to do is get our committee providing this work for you. So I'm glad to send this back to you, and if you want to say, great, it's really nice to send it right back to us, that would be fine too.
My suggestion would be, if you choose to send it back, be very clear with what you would like us to do with it. Are we to simply comment on it? Are we to revise it? Are we to, otherwise, we don't have clear direction as to exactly what we're supposed to do when it comes back.
So my thought is that if we can, that we ought to approve this questionnaire as a suitable questionnaire by Senate action, a suitable questionnaire to be used in our online course evaluation structure, and send it back to UPC with that recommendation. Then we would be very clear about what we're recommending to you.
Seems a little puzzling, because then you're asking the Personnel Committee to approve action of the Senate, which we don't have authority to do. We give a recommendation to the Senate, you have the final say.
And we've taken the final say on this. Should we then direct you to use this in the course evaluation system as part of that?
I would think that would be the more appropriate course.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion like that in 2 weeks.
That does bring up the issue of implementation, which is the next step on this. And it's not something we deliberately as a committee didn't want to look at that, but we came up with a wish list of what we should be doing.
Yes, and that was very appropriate for your committee to do. And the provost has much of the action on the implementation because as you saw, they're considering an application on Canvas that would implement the course evaluation system, allowing us to have the sort of variety of questions for all courses, whether they're online or on campus, or the different types they're dealing with, opportunities for faculty to put in their questions, which we don't have yet. So I think what you've done has been very appropriate for your committee, and we'll make a motion on our next meeting that the UPC adopt this as part of the ongoing course evaluation system. And then then the provost is going to need to put the system together that will support this good questionnaire system.
I think that when we put that forward, we should also offer some sort of suggestion on how we will help to ensure that this is, what's going to be the Senate's role in advocating the actual adoption of this thing.
And maybe we need to have that part of a motion or a second motion encouraging the provost to take the actions and make this work.
Okay.
Other comments?
Can
Yes, Sally, please.
I'm a member of FPC, and I don't know that our committee has the authority to, and you said the provost is the one who would implement.
Yeah,
And if you directed us to use it, we can't use it till it's implemented.
Agreed.
Our committee's job is to use the evaluations as we consider advance and tenure and promotion. Am I wrong, Ellen? Is it our committee's job to, so I mean, if you direct us to implement, I don't think we have any mechanism there.
and it's the place that you're right, and it's the place that we're stuck. UPC needs a questionnaire system that will work, and UPC, in order to be able to use it in faculty evaluation, needs a system that collects valid data using this system. And a couple of meetings ago, we directed the provost to stop using the current online evaluation system because it collected no valid data because of its response rate. And I think what we'll need to do is give this to UPC for use in a program that the provost needs to implement so that we have a valid way of collecting online course evaluation system data using the questionnaire that we have. So you're right, you can't do it, but Faculty Senate can facilitate and activate the provost to get this done. She expects to get it done within 6 months.
Okay, Chris, is that a question?
Just offer some unsolicited advice. So it sounds to me like you're at the stage of making a recommendation to the provost that she adopt this form.
Correct.
So that would be where we go for the next step.
So you're right. And what we're trying to do is facilitate the ability to UPC to collect valid data using a good questionnaire system.
So it doesn't help to direct us to do something that's not being.
Right. I mean, the provost could say, yes, this is the form we're using, go use it.
And she needs to provide the system that we can use effectively.
Right, or potentially come back and say, well, this is great, but I have this other problem, form doesn't address and can be institutions.
Thank you, Steve. Colleen, academic conduct policy. Yeah, I had academic conduct policy. I have academic honesty code made 2015. You want it pulled up?
If it's available. I did bring a couple of copies if anybody
Oh, let's
needed
pull
it.
it up. Heidi, you're doing great.
So I was asked by Ray to represent Academic Standards Committee and Student Affairs Committee, bringing this forward as a result of some issues that have occurred recently, and just wanted to share the suggested revisions to the Academic Honesty Code, and I know it's short notice, but I thought I'd just kind of go over what we've added, took away just quickly. Unless you want to just look it over, just tell me how you want it to go. First,
Can you will it?
walk you through it.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
One,
Nicole, go
Sorry,
ahead.
just the changes, I think.
So I felt it was important to just get rid of the beginning and fall term because it's almost 10 years, 10 years ago, so we don't need to rehash that. So took that out, took out initiated and just indicates Eastern Oregon University's honored code is based on integrity, et cetera. Under the provisions, we added, and the EOU student code of conduct, because currently what has happened, how we do things is academic honesty is the purview of the faculty. However, it's implemented through the student conduct program. So that means that we have to recognize the procedures that are currently outlined in the student code of conduct with regard to hearings, appeals, with the exception of what's being provided below. So we added that. We took out number 5 and added the note because one of the things that I've recognized and talked to students about many, many times is that when they, say for example, withdraw from a course, but they've kept all their coursework and they plan on retaking the course, they're just gonna take what they've already completed and submit it again. And so I talk to students about that a lot and I remind them of that, but most of them, it's not that I'm reminding them, it's I'm making them aware because they obviously don't read it until they're in trouble, right? So I just think it's important to highlight that it's just making it a little bit more standing out because it's something that students could get caught up in. So then that would bump number 6 to number 5.
Can I make one suggestion for clarity? Semantically, this reads like in more than one course, and they could say, well, but it's the same course. I think you could say, oh yeah, here, I just had it and lost it. Even if it is the same course during a different term.
Mm-hmm.
If indeed that's what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have students who are taking an independent study with Professor Johnson, but they're doing their capstone with me, and they'll try and pass off what they're doing in his independent study as my capstone.
Yep.
And that's not.
No, I get, that's not cool, but it's also, I think what you're saying is if they get halfway through my course and drop, and they come back into my course, they can't submit the same work in my course?
Without your approval.
Right.
And the same is, and the same for, shoot, I forgot your name, Corey. It's the same thing. Because they do that too. They'll want it, or they'll do the same document and just change it up and put it's being submitted to a different course.
To address that concern, could you say more than one section instead of more than one course? Because Nicole's concern was if somebody took Chemistry 101, failed it, and then took Chemistry 101 again, they might argue, well, it's the same course.
The way we use the language, it is the same course. I mean, that's the vocabulary.
Different term.
And so they would say, well, it's not more than one course, it's the same course.
Right.
So you could say more than one section, and that would clarify that, I think.
So change more than one course to more than one section of a course?
Or just more than one section.
Section?
Or just add more words. Same course, different term.
Yes.
So you could do that also, more than one course or the same course in different terms.
Even if it is the same course in a different term. That's what I was thinking.
So you're calling your data.
There you go.
So I have explicit approval by all instructors involved is required if the same coursework is to be submitted in more than one section, even if it is the same course in a different term.
Since you're adding the extra, courses, I think, or what do you guys?
Keep course
Keep the
rather
original
than
course
section.
instead of section.
And then
If
just
you're
adding
adding
that stuff,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what else?
The next if you'll scroll down a little bit more, added under cheating and/or unauthorized, because sometimes it's one or the other or both. And then under unauthorized, if you'll go back up, under unauthorized collaboration, I highlight it explicitly to be completed individually, just to make emphasis. And then under procedures and reporting, it says the faculty member is required to file a report of suspected academic dishonesty, and we added following form instructions. And so that's why you have the form that is to be filled out as well. And I can show you that here in just a moment. So that's all that was on there. We added, well, one of the things that we did is we added the subsection. So we have A, reporting. That's new. So we broke up the one sentence that was there, the one paragraph. Then we added B, conduct hearings and possible sanctions. So this whole section has been added. It says conduct hearings related to academic dishonesty must include at least one teaching faculty member from the Academic Standards Committee when heard by a hearings officer, and at minimum 2 teaching faculty if heard by the Student Hearings Committee. Hearings proceedings utilized through the student conduct program shall be adhered to. I will give you a little caveat for next year. What we're looking at revising the student code of conduct is totally removing the student hearings committee option. So it will just be with hearings officer or officers. So it will be just heard by one individual if it's non-academic, 2 individuals if it's academic in nature or sexual assault related. Sexual misconduct related.
And you added and approval up there above. Is the and approval new?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Discussion and approval.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So if we go back up under reporting, the last sentence, the instructor may also assign a grade of F for the course after discussion and approval with the respective college dean. Thank you, Nicole. If you'll scroll down to the next paragraph, we added the section about appeals. So the last portion, it says, an appeal related to academic dishonesty must be reviewed or heard by both the respective college dean and the vice president for student services and follow the appeal procedures identified in the student code of conduct.
I'm sorry, could we go back to that last thing, the and approval of the college
Sure.
dean?
Mm-hmm.
So is that saying that previously we were able to assign a failing grade at our own discretion, but now we will have to get approval by the dean in order to do that?
No, it just wasn't in there because the form indicates that if you're going to give them an F grade, you have to get approval of the dean.
This happened, I ran into this sometime this year, and it did say this one place, the form said the other place. I would strongly advocate for faculty agency in this. I disagreed with my dean who wanted to give them another chance, and I felt like it's super clear in my syllabus that you're an upper division student, you cheat, you're done. And I feel like that's taken away from me. So I personally don't want to ask my dean to be able to do that. I don't know if that's something other senators are interested in. And I'm willing to fight that personally, but I know ultimately grades are the purview of administration, blah, blah, blah. Eastern Promise, they do different things, but I'd love to own my grade myself.
So if I'm understanding correctly, currently the policy is inconsistently stated, and in one place it says that you have to have approval of the dean, but it didn't say it here.
The form indicates that you have to have approval. From
So
the
what you've done is made this statement consistent with the form. And what Nicole is bringing to us is that
Sure.
maybe the form ought to be changed to say this so that the grade continues to be the purview of the instructor.
Right, and for me, I strongly feel, and student services feels that it's the grade is a purview of the faculty. So
Do you want to leave this and change the form? Is that a simple workaround?
remove and approval and change the form.
Yeah, I can have a discussion with my dean and let him or her know what I'm gonna do, and then on the form, we could just take out and approval. I mean, we don't have.
That makes sense to me.
Me too.
So you'll take out the and approval in this language here and change the form to indicate that it would be a discussion with the dean, but not the approval of the dean.
Yeah, so we'll take out the course grade penalty approved by the dean,
Thanks, Bob.
yes or no.
That's
Yeah.
great.
That makes sense to me too. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay. So again, the appeal information. Then the next paragraph, I took out the when requested by the instructor, because most of the time when we receive an academic misconduct case, majority of the time it's a first offense. And sometimes the students choose not to move forward on that. So they might not want to even have a hearing. But sometimes the students disagree with the faculty and they want a hearing. And so they're going to ask for that. So I felt that it would just allow the option either way to remove the when requested by the instructor. So hearings procedures may be implemented upon the first report of suspected academic dishonesty. Then we added conduct record retention. It shows that reports of suspected academic dishonesty shall remain on record by the student conduct program administrator. That's my position. As outlined in the Oregon University System retention guidelines, although that's going to change, but that'll happen later.
So that's sort of an interesting issue that I think is important, but it begs the question about do you keep records on suspicion?
Yes, I do. What I do is if I don't receive a document or an academic misconduct report, but I have somebody that's emailed me and said, I believe this has occurred, I don't necessarily create a conduct file, but I keep the record that somebody has requested inquiry.
So my question I'll get to is, are we okay with that? A suspicion of something going into a student's file. I get why.
But it's not an official.
But it's in writing in their file.
Not in their file, no, I keep so anything for 2014, 2015, any inquiries that I receive, I call them student relations reports, I guess, for the lack of a better word. I document those, I indicate it, I identify the faculty member and the student, but it's not official record. It's just my information.
In the appeal procedure above, what exactly is the mechanism, since the appeal is supposed to be heard by two different people there?
They would do it respectively, together. They would hear the appeal, the student appeal for the conduct violation, not for the grade.
Okay.
Just the conduct violation. We just want to deal with behavior. So say for example.
And then the pair of them collectively would come up with a decision.
Collectively, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have that, and then the conduct record retention, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I wanted to see if anybody else felt uncomfortable with that, and I didn't hear any discomfort besides mine.
Then we added the proctoring of exams. It says, in order to provide unbiased supervision, proctors must be individuals who do not have a direct interest in the success of the student, but a neutral individual who understands the nature of proctoring and be able to proctor during the required time as stipulated by the professor. With instructor's approval, exceptions may include, but are not limited to, student leaders or athletes that are at events out of town or state at the time of the exam. The proctor must be present during the entire test or exam. A student that is on campus and taking online courses may be required to take proctored examinations at the testing center if specified in a course syllabus.
And I don't know why, if students were on campus, you wouldn't have all of them take their testing center.
I don't know.
Yeah. You read.
Removed.
Yeah, that.
The academic honesty code and its effectiveness will be assessed on a biannual basis by the Academic Standards Committee in collaboration with the Student Affairs Committee. I changed that, I just moved it
Okay.
from there to review and revision of policy.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it was in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And then we added the word assessed under that section. If you scroll down more, I'm not sure if you have the form.
It's in a different
It's in-
file.
Okay.
Can I ask a question
Mhm.
on the, I have to find it, sorry. The keeping of records,
Yes.
where do those records go after the 14-15 academic year?
The non-conduct related records.
Okay,
I'm asking you.
sure.
Okay. They are kept for 5 years in either my office or down in the basement where our records are kept. Same with any conduct violations that actually get acted upon.
Right.
They're kept for 5 years and then they're destroyed.
And who may access those records?
Anyone that requests of it and get authorization by a student. So if a student wants to, so if someone were to call, say for example, when I get records requests from an employer, I can't give the information without their signature, and typically they will come with a release of information disclosure document. So I'll release that information. Sometimes it's for when they're in graduate school or they want to be an employer. If a student wants a copy of their record, they have to request it in writing, and in a reasonable time, we'll get that to them. If a faculty member wants to know what's going on with this particular student, if you call me, it's a need to know. It's an academic need to know, so I can talk to you about whether or not the student has had a violation, but I can't be specific about what it is, but I can strongly encourage you to submit a report.
These other ones that John was referencing that you keep in a directory,
Mhm.
an
Same.
email directory, that's also 5 years and that's
Mhm.
blown away.
Yes. Although email is not confidential, so if somebody were to, you can't ever get rid of email specifically, so it's always there. But my records are gone.
Technically.
But you specifically go in and delete the
Yep.
folder. And it may continue out in the ether, but as far as EOU is concerned, that's gone.
Yes,
Okay, so what do we have here in the form?
Thank you.
you're welcome. For the form, what we added actually is the section, changing the location of where my office is. But of particular interest would be adding the verbiage, faculty members are encouraged to consult with a colleague, dean, or the director of student relations to determine appropriate code violations are submitted. And the reason, for example, if it might be collaboration versus cheating or plagiarism. So, talk about what it is that occurred, what do you believe occurred, and then are we charging the student appropriately for either cheating, collaboration, facilitation, plagiarism of someone else's work or their own. Because what we don't want to have happening, many, many years ago, we had a student that it was believed stole an exam. And so it was cheating and plagiarism, but that student was not found responsible for cheating or plagiarism, but at that time it was the Student Affairs Committee, they felt that the student was responsible for theft, but the student wasn't charged with theft. So we can't find them responsible for something that they're not charged for, because they have to be able to defend the allegation. So it's important to make sure that what is coming forward is the actual incident or issue. So that's what that means.
Could I suggest maybe some word changes for that?
Yeah.
Faculty members are encouraged to consult with college dean,
Colleague.
college dean, or director's committees to determine what code violations might be submitted or something like that. Or determine the appropriate code violation to be submitted.
That would be better.
Okay.
And then the other one is, I'll remove the dean's action, remove the grade, course grade
Thank you.
penalty approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the very last thing is just change the location of where I'm located, 113A.
Okay.
And if I may, since I was privy to the student affairs discussion side of this, that very first statement at the top refers to that discussion we had of double jeopardy. Is that correct? The idea that it's a one-time thing, this is the form, this says this is what you did, and you defend it, and then it doesn't come back again.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Exactly,
that you can't come back for a second hit,
correct.
essentially.
Any other questions for Colleen? So when this comes up in a couple of weeks on the faculty senate agenda for action, I'll look for a motion approving this policy. Thank you. Yeah.
What I'll do is share the information with Ray Brown
Mhm.
for Academic Standards Committee.
Mhm.
And so we'll make sure that everyone's on the same
Okay.
page.
And a good, clean, clean copy of the Ray. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have two agenda items that I think we can get through. The first one is the nomination process for faculty senate officers. And we don't have a process for that right now. The last few years, the last 3 years, Deanna was president or I was president. I nominated Deanna to be president. She nominated me to be president for this year. And plans to nominate me to be president again for this year coming up, which works fine for Deanna and me. I'm not sure whether it's exactly the process that we want for selecting faculty senate officers. It works. So if it works and we're satisfied with the process, that's fine. Deanna and I have talked about this, and the issue about collecting nominees for the position from this body now or from the new body, which will be voting on it, who haven't been elected yet because Kobe hasn't finished their election for the incoming officers, and we use the incoming officers to vote in June, becomes sort of squirrely. So what we could do is that we could assign an election, I don't know what manager, I don't know what to call him. I could collect nominations and ask for a brief statement from the nominees and have it ready for the faculty senate when we vote on that, which seems like a reasonable course, except, I've got a log in the fire here. I'll be one of the nominees. The reason I said that we might want a non-officer, somebody who's not going to be nominated, to manage this for us just this one time, somebody to collect the nominees and collect perhaps statements from those folks so that we could have those for us when we voted for the officers. We could also, I could solicit those from the new Senate and have them send them to Heidi. So all I'm doing is asking for the solicitation of those, and she accumulated requested statements from the nominated persons to go forward.
That second solution seems like a good one.
So I'll just go ahead and do that. What I'll do is I'll send out a request for nominations for officers and to the from the new senators, because like Thursday I'll have the list of Kobe, and I believe Cass is done with their election.
We are.
Yeah, so I'll get that list, and I'll work with Heidi to send out a solicitation for officers, and then ask them to send them back to her, and ask her then to to contact the nominee, ask them if they're willing to serve, and if so, to give us a brief statement on why they want to serve.
And if there's more than one, will there be a vote, I'm assuming?
There will be a vote, yeah, and it would be healthy nominee for each office.
And what deadline do you want to give out for the nominations?
Oh, we'll work that out. Sometime before you have to put it in the agenda of it. So we do not have a quorum, we cannot vote on EPCC actions. I was hoping that we might accumulate a quorum, we never had a quorum.
You did never have 10?
No.
We had 9.
You had 9 the whole time?
Quorum is 10, correct, or is it 11?
I think it's 11, isn't it? I thought there were 21.
I thought it
I
was
thought it was 11 also.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do you vote?
I do.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We had 10.
That was 10 then,
7,
John
8,
voted.
9. Yes, you did, you had a quorum.
Well, then I messed up, I'm sorry.
Don't, I can't believe that.
There's
I had it at the beginning of the agenda.
one question about this.
So we'll vote on that first thing in 2 weeks, and that'll be done with that. Yeah, go ahead.
Qualifications to be president is one question, and the utility of having people who are new to the Senate voting on something that they're relatively unfamiliar with.
Mhm.
That's just 2 points that I was wondering if perhaps address.
It's sort of an interesting issue. A number of officers have been nominated and started serving in their very first year as a member of the faculty senate. Deanna was president of the Senate the first time she was nominated to be a member of the Senate. I was vice president of the Senate the first year that I was nominated for. So there's precedent for that. Is that good policy? That would be an interesting discussion, or maybe a boring discussion, I don't know.
Perhaps qualification, not necessarily being the first time on the Senate, but perhaps some kind of service standard. You've been here for this long, you know the place, so it makes it easier for you to be Senate president than it would be for me, a novice, so to speak. I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing here.
Well, I've not heard in the 4 years that I've been in the Senate, I haven't heard a discussion of that.
No.
And the nomination process was very informal. So we'll get more of a formal response, and we'll get some sort of statements from the people that are nominated for the offices.
Yeah.
Then we can reflect on that, see what we think of it.
Right.
Okay. Anything for the good of the order? Okay, thank you, Roger. Sally was angry at me. I was going to try to heal, and I didn't really have
I didn't either.
a quorum, and then people fled before I could count either.
Yeah. Well, I was counting, I didn't really